Okay. Okay, everybody, welcome to the end of grant session for the New York Digital Inclusion Fund. It's gone by so quickly. I can't believe these 9 months have gone by already, and you all have accomplished so much. And so I can't wait to hear all about this, as I'm sure you all are excited to hear about what everyone else has been up to in these since our last quarterly meeting. Let's see here. All right, so what we'll do is we're just going to do a brief welcome from Nuha and Christy, and then we'll go into the cohort check-ins, and then we'll wrap up with just some information that I'd like to share with you.
I won't take too long. Most folks already know me either through email or we've been on calls like this previously, but it has been a really long time since we last connected. First and foremost, just want to say congratulations again for completing your term. This was a really, really exciting opportunity for us to put out there into the ecosystem, and we're really impressed by the class that's really come together, and we hope that this will kind of sow the seeds and be a longer term initiative that New York State can take advantage of. And so I know me personally, I'm just really excited to see what the presentations look like and see what's really been done and how far y'all have gotten. So I'll save most of my words for the end, but really excited to see y'all again, and congratulations.
Thank you, Nuha. And Christy?
So I'll just say good afternoon. I'm Christy Zappi-Ferragino, Program Director at NDIA. Really thrilled to be here with you guys today. You know, as we talked about when we kicked off, this was an idea that Schmidt Futures had, and lucky enough for NDIA to step forward and assist you. And Vicky's done a really great job providing the support that you need, along with Mooney and other staff members. So really want to see what's happened as you use this planning money to either expand or grow or create a coalition, and what's ahead for you. So without further ado, I'll flip it back to Vicky.
Okay, and we have Gina in the room today too, so I'd love to just give a couple seconds for her to say something to you all as well.
Hi, everyone. Gina, Deputy Director at NDIA. I'm really excited to be here today to see all that you've done in the last weeks and months. What's new, what's innovative, what's changed, what's been challenging, all of the things. So thank you for all your work on putting coalitions together in your communities, and I'm excited to hear more.
Great, thank you so much. And I just wanted to kind of say, you know, that it's been a pleasure getting to know all of you. I wanted to share also that Nuha, Christy, and Gina, I started at NDIA in the fall, October of 2021, but they've been working on this project for a long time. And so it's great to kind of go through this process of having done all the planning and all the work that they did in envisioning what this might look like, and then culminating to this point. So I'm really excited to hear as well, to hear everybody else's share. So I'll go ahead and get started. All right, so this is the Capital Region Digital Equity Coalition.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Nikki Brown. I'm the Chief of Staff at NYDIF of the Greater Capital Region. And here are our slides. So what have we accomplished since we last met? One of the very first things, one of the most exciting things, is we made a logo. So there's our logo there. Really exciting to be able to put that on some of our branded materials. Part of the collaborative effort. That was a pretty fun activity to do all together. So I thought I'd lead with that. One of the other things that we've been able to do is put together a survey as part of our efforts to sort of asset map the region and understand how people are experiencing digital inequities. So we've created a survey that's designed to go out to both individuals and community-based organizations to understand how this is manifesting in different contexts and communities. Because for our region, and probably for like many of your regions, it's geographically diverse. A lot of rural area, a lot of urban areas. So we kind of want to understand how these things are happening and where. So this survey we've created, it's going out now, and all of the partners are distributing it to their audiences, and that'll cover both, like I said, community-based organizations and individuals. We've also, I listed all of our coalition members there on the right-hand side, but we added a couple since the last time that we met. So one of the things that we've been focusing on is really diversifying the core group here, with some more proximate leaders who are working a little bit more hyper locally in their communities with folks. So we added a smaller community center in one of our local cities. We also added Albany Public Library officially to our coalition as well, and they're doing some really cool things on the innovation side. So that's been a nice partnership. Next slide, Vicki. Most proud of. So I put a picture there of our first in-person meeting. That was super exciting. We all got together for our first meeting, and you can see all the papers there. We were working on a lot of definitions, trying to come to a common understanding on a lot of these terms, and really exploring what each of us has been doing in the space. So those were facilitated conversations. We worked with Hillary Colos, who a lot of you may know or know of, to facilitate a lot of that work for us. We added new partners, like I mentioned, the asset mapping activity. The cluster of paper there in the back of the room is actually physically trying to asset map a little bit, but we've been working on that as well. And then the survey build out and initial conversations around that is something that we're pretty proud of too. And then as far as goals for the next 6 to 12 months, we'll be getting the results in for the surveys that are going out over the next couple of months. So our coalition is meeting again in a couple of weeks to start to review those initial responses. Again, trying to further diversify the coalition itself, and then finalize an official mission, vision, and charter for the coalition so that we can get some of this governance stuff on paper, which I think would be really helpful for us too, because the goal is to grow the coalition even further. And I think to do that effectively, we need it all on paper. And then finally, just long-term sustainability plans. So we have a lot of partners at the table who are working in this space, and there's a lot of enthusiasm around it. So we're now at the point where we need to figure out how we're going to fund the coalition moving forward. So that's a big topic for our next coalition meeting. So those are just some of our goals over the next year.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful. It's just great to hear, how you did your survey, and then congratulations on your in-person meeting. That's exciting. I think everybody smiled when they're like, in-person meeting, and
I know. We ordered sandwiches and everything. It was a whole thing. So
that's awesome. So that's great. Thank you so much for sharing, Nikki.
Thanks, Vicki.
All right, Finger Lakes.
Okay. This grant was like really super special for us because we've been underway for about 4.5 years. And the grant allows us to really step back and take a deep breath. And rarely do we get to do that, in our different organizations. So it was really a blessing. And when we took that breath and stepped back, what we realized was that we have about 90 coalition members who participate in our work to varying degrees. And they represent a very broad set of people who are really unserved and underserved in terms of digital inclusion. But we realized that we didn't really have people who were daily working like boots on the ground with very specific groups, like our rural farmers, our refugees, our veterans, and those who are really on the ground, just working to expand kind of rural job creation. So we set out to say we need more of these people in our coalition. So we added 15 of these members, and we're really grateful that we did. The other thing that we found in stepping back was that it gave us an opportunity to do some things that really were looking at the sustainability of the people who are members of our coalition. And one of the ways that we wanted to do that was we wanted to look at how many members have also institutionalized digital equity in their organization's strategic plan. Because as many of us know, it's these strategic plans and these annual kind of performance reviews that keep on the table certain issues. And we really want digital equity to be one of them. So as you can read here, we surveyed over 185 of our coalition members, and we came away with only a handful that have included digital equity into their strategic plans. So, I mean, this really was a wake-up call for us, and it led to kind of how we're planning to move forward, which we'll get to in another slide. The other thing that we did was we really worked on expanding our advocacy in terms of planning for our symposium in the fall. We were able to meet with the Deputy Secretary of Commerce, Don Graves, to highlight some of the real challenges of digital equity in like rural areas. We helped to form a statewide New York Digital Equity Network, and we've been working with other folks on a project called DEEM that is looking at the creation of performance metrics for use by coalitions across, the United States and possibly Canada as well. I'm not quite sure, but expanding our advocacy became very important for us.
Thank you.
Our proudest achievements were really like kickstarting that membership drive that really got a whole set of new voices of community members into our coalition. In terms of advocacy, we also expanded our political outreach to all 9 county planning and community development officers kind of in the Finger Lakes, because we understand the significance of expanding our political reach. And this had been an area that we had a few political voices, like elected officials, but we wanted more. And we also, we had always thought it was really important to try to start bringing together a kind of shared vision for digital equity and help to develop a digital equity plan for the Finger Lakes, but we didn't have any breathing room to do it. So now we have, because we used some of the funding to hire 2 part-time consultants who are focusing on kind of the development of a digital equity plan for the Finger Lakes. And what they're doing is at this juncture, they're pulling together all of the strategic background information, and they're also figuring out in each of the 9 counties what's going on, who's doing what, who has kind of maybe a preliminary plan, who has a plan that they're quite proud of, who've never heard of a digital equity plan. And so that's what's underway now. In terms of our goals for the next 6 to 12 months, we're looking at filling the gaps that we identified. We're going to, move away from our online conferences, and we're hosting for our 4th annual symposium. And we're taking the perspective that, look, the digital divide is acknowledged and funds are available. Now what are we going to do? Individually and collectively in our different organizations. So it's kind of a forward-looking symposium. We're also going to complete 3 case studies looking at the organizations who have put digital equity into their strategic plan. And we're going to see if we can secure at least 10 coalition members to complete this process. And then we're going to share what we've come to in terms of our process and how we did our kind of our identification and recommendations with other coalitions. As I mentioned, we're focused on, finishing that, or we'll be finishing the digital equity plan background for our Finger Lakes region. And if requested, we'd like to assist with the development of the state's digital equity plan. And like my colleague before me, we're looking at sustainable funding for our organization. And we want to just continue, of course, with our advocacy efforts and strengthening our membership.
Thank you so much, Lynn, for sharing all that. I found it really, I always amazed, that digital equity, even though people are members of a coalition, that it's not part of their strategic plan. So I'm glad that that's something you'll be addressing and looking at in the future moving forward. All right. Long Island Digital Inclusion Coalition.
Okay. Hello again, everyone. So nice to see you all. So as you may recall, we're a brand new coalition, and we've spent the past 8 months or so basically creating a framework for what we are and what we're going to do, at least at a high level. And what I think we realized as a group early on was that the level of awareness needed in the region was fairly high. And I think at least I didn't expect Suffolk and Nassau counties to be somewhat disconnected from what's going on in the rest of the state, as well as what organizations are doing. And a lot of our coalition members, including libraries, to a large extent, libraries as well, they are doing digital inclusion work without realizing that they're doing digital inclusion work. And so to put a term around it, some framework around their activities has been extremely helpful. And that's really, I think, to a large extent, a result of getting the grant in itself. So, we really appreciate just the fact that there's some organization and framework pushing this effort has been extremely helpful to get people together, to get people talking about it. So some of the accomplishments since we met last. So I think the logo, the Capital Region logo, is really nice. We're actually working on getting a logo for ourselves as we speak now. I mean, hopefully in the next few weeks, we'll have a logo for the Long Island Digital Inclusion Coalition as well. So I'm really excited about that. I think we have a website going. I think I mentioned that the last time we spoke. So to add the logo to that and get our marketing efforts really going, I think that will, the logo is a prerequisite for that. So I'm excited about that. Another thing that has happened here on Long Island is, sorry, Vicky, before you move on.
I don't know how to go back.
Just hit the up button, it should take you.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. Another very interesting development that's happened and is happening here on Long Island is this tech van. So using the ARPA monies, both Suffolk and Nassau cooperative library systems decided to use some of that money to get 2 vans that are equipped with Wi-Fi, equipped with computers, and most importantly, I think ACP, Affordable Connectivity Program, literature. And so libraries, so the idea is that librarians can sit in these vans and have patrons go through and actually sign people up and help patrons complete the application if they want. And we're working, both systems have been a tremendous partner so far for the coalition, and we're trying to figure out how best to utilize these vans, given that they're out there. So it's a very interesting development, and it's new. They just deployed. So Suffolk has had this big RV for the past couple of years called the Sled, which has video games on it as well. So when they go to communities, the video games are what get the most attraction, and they want to change that. So, you know, we have an opportunity to work together on figuring out what the most optimal use is for these brands. So, so we have 20 entities in the coalition, and in fact, I think that's increased now. I think we have 22. We have a couple of more libraries added since since I put the report together. Awareness is growing, as I mentioned. I think that's been our biggest and most interesting component to all the activities that we're doing. So a couple of the nonprofits, for example, that are members, they're really they're doing digital inclusion work, like I said, without realizing it. Their core mission is to provide education services, but thanks to the pandemic, they were forced to help their constituents and people availing of their services on how to use an iPad to take the citizenship test, on how to use computers to get a job, things like that. So it's been an eye-opening experience, I think, for all of us. And in general, I think our goal, I'll mention in the next slide, is to get that marketing going, which is why we're also working on the logo. So we've met 8 times. We haven't had an in-person meeting yet, but that's the plan for the fall, to at least meet once in person. As it happens, Suffolk is a big county, and getting around, you know, it can easily be an hour to an hour and a half for some people to get to meetings. So maybe, you know, since I'm somewhat in the middle, in the center of the island with Stony Brook, that could be a really nice location. As I said, we've developed our mission and vision, deployed a website, and connected with the New York State Digital Equity Network that Lynn mentioned as well. We're, at least here on Long Island, we're excited about being able to be plugged into some statewide activities as to, in terms of just garnering awareness and understanding what's happening from the state's point of view in terms of supporting these activities and what we can push them to do. So our plans for the next 6 to 12 months: increase marketing and community visibility efforts. We are planning to be at a Stony Brook conducted health fair in October. Hopefully by then we'll have the logo done and some marketing materials that we can then market the coalition itself directly. We're looking to hire a project coordinator to coordinate our activities, as well as I think as these activities grow, there's a need for just a few hours a week, someone to handle some of our activities. And then do an asset mapping exercise that was mentioned, so similar to what was mentioned earlier. And this, you know, we're going to start with including some Stony Brook students on this, because we can create some visualizations using a tool, a visualization tool, and also work with the statewide equity network to then include New York statewide resources as well. So I think it'll be an interesting project. We're not looking necessarily to mimic what Cornell has or what Microsoft just created, because I think that uses a different data set. We can merge those, I think, but high level, we're thinking of just providing, okay, what's out there on the ground? What are people actually doing in terms of providing these services? So that's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Rajiv. I really love the idea of working with students to help to do your asset mapping. I think that that's a great resource that you guys have. And then also, yes, libraries often don't know that they're doing digital inclusion work, but they are. And so thank you for sharing all those exciting things happening. North Country.
Hi, everyone. I only have 2 slides. This was just my little overview as a reminder. I work for an organization called Adirondack Health Institute. We partnered with Fort Drum Regional Health Planning Organization to cover 11 counties that we currently work with our North Country telehealth partnership. And we wanted to really dive into the connection of telehealth access with broader digital inclusion and equity needs within the region. So you could go on to the next slide. So for some updates, some accomplishments, since the last time we met, we have recruited additional members, and we have monthly meetings. We're up to 47 coalition members. We started this from the ground up, utilizing some partners we work with on the healthcare side with our telehealth work, but of course expanding beyond healthcare to work with local CBOs, the library systems, broadband and telecommunication experts, higher education, and so many more. So it's been really great to see so much traction and like dedication from members throughout the 11 counties. Again, it's a large region, the North Country. So I was really excited to have representation from all of those counties so far. And just like a few of the other folks have mentioned, we're really excited to be able to have the opportunity to work with the New York State Digital Equity Network that Heidi has started from Western New York. And it's really exciting to see some traction on the statewide lens of things. And we're excited to see how the North Country can assist with those efforts. Some proud accomplishments. Again, the 47 members, I think, is really our biggest accomplishment starting from the ground up. We did deploy the 2 surveys. One was for community members throughout the North Country, all about telehealth utilization and barriers to digital inclusion aspects beyond telehealth. And then we also had a healthcare provider targeted survey to see who in our region is utilizing telehealth and offering it, and if they're not, why that may be. Telehealth is really important in the North Country because of the vast geographic region. We live in healthcare provider shortage area, so there's not always a local provider and a lot of specialties that you may need. So connecting via telehealth has really been a savior before the pandemic, of course, trying to stay during the pandemic as well. So we were really excited to have 234 community members respond to our survey and 60 healthcare providers, ranging from hospitals, behavioral health, substance use, pediatrics, quite a wide range. So we've gotten some really great data, nothing that we didn't kind of already know, but it's really nice to see and analyze this data and see that the largest barrier to digital equity is broadband access. The North Country poses some challenges with the terrain, the Adirondack Park, of course. So working with some of our telecommunications partners in the region, Adirondack ADK Action is another nonprofit, and they have a broadband for all program. They do a lot of great advocacy work. So being able to have this data to share with our partners is really exciting. And we're hoping to, one of our goals is to publish a report with the data to share widely. Another accomplishment, I put a little screenshot there. We were interviewed for an article in the Northern New York Business Journal about our work, which was really cool. And I thought it was really, it was funny that they did the portrait of us on Zoom, which made a lot of sense, being, digital equity work. So that was really cool. I was also interviewed for a podcast locally that was just released. And we spoke about, it was all about broadband access in the Adirondacks, but I was able to speak about our coalition and specifically the effects of broadband access on healthcare. So that was really cool. And let's see what else I jotted down to mention. We noted again from the surveys, beyond the broadband access, there's just a huge lack of awareness, and digital literacy is a big issue. So historically, we have worked really closely with healthcare providers to ensure access to telehealth in our communities, but we want to really expand that and work more with our communities to ensure that they have access on their end. So that's something we're looking forward to focusing on in the next year with the coalition. We, of course, want to identify additional funding to support our efforts, and we want to get into some programmatic opportunities. We spoke about that on our last meeting, and we'll focus on it in our September meeting, which is happening at the end of the month. We want to identify a few local community forums that are offered with some of our CBO partners to speak with our community members and see what would have the biggest impact. We don't want to just dive into, you know, a new programmatic effort without getting feedback from the community members and ensuring that their voices are heard throughout the process. So getting our voices out there and talking with some of these forums, and also we want to create a website and do some marketing. And again, I think we'll probably kick that off with the report on our survey results. When we start sharing that, we'll ensure that we have some marketing materials and a website to support that. And I think that's it. I'm really excited. Of course, we started with the telehealth lens, but we've quickly noted that it's not even just about access to healthcare, but access to digital life affects healthcare way beyond just seeing your doctor virtually. So we're excited to explore that and work on that future in the Adirondacks.
I was muted. I was just like so excited by sharing, and I was just like didn't even notice I was on mute. But I just really appreciate that ability to pivot, as needed, and then just kind of and then adding 10 new members. That's wonderful, and that aren't necessarily all tied to healthcare, and so I think that that's just amazing work. So great job. And that's a lot of responses on a survey. So, I mean, that's something to be proud of. All right. I don't think Elena and Marco could make it, or they haven't seen them come in. So we're going to, I'm just going to skip over these because I know that Caroline has to leave. And so I'll read through some of those later, but let's go ahead and do Sunset Park.
Hi, my name is David Giles. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Brooklyn Public Library. The Sunset Park Digital Inclusion Group is a new coalition. It started as a sort of loose collection of service providers in Sunset Park, Brooklyn during the pandemic. And over the last 8 months or so, we've been trying to turn that into something a little bit more formal. So our members are listed here. That should say the Academy of Medical and Public Health Services is a member of the Brooklyn Public Library, Community Board 7, Fifth Avenue Committee, the Immigration Advocates Network, Metropolitan New York Library Council, NYU Langone, and PS 94. So last fall, when we proposed our project for the Schmidt Futures Grant, planning grant, we had 4 members who attended our meetings regularly. We now have 8 members. So we have grown. During the summer, during the last 3 or 4 months, we were able to hire Community Tech New York, which is a New York-based nonprofit in the digital equity space and has worked with other coalitions in the state and perhaps beyond the state to do a community needs assessment and landscape analysis in Sunset Park. And so over the summer, we held 4 community listening sessions in 4 different languages, including English, Mandarin, Spanish, and Bengali. And I have to apologize. I didn't stick to Vicky's assignment and putting these slides together. I realized that this morning. So I will try to answer the questions she posed in her email as we go along.
But I was slide? Should I just be sure to let me know when you want me to move?
I will, and it's fine. We
Okay.
can stay here. So one thing we found in our research, and we have a 70 page report we're still very much digesting, and we'll be digesting for a while. But one thing we found is that the digital equity needs in Sunset Park are not evenly distributed. In fact, there are very clear geographic areas of the neighborhood that have much higher needs in terms of internet access and access to devices and literacy than other parts of the neighborhood. So you see here some dashboards that CTNY helped us create for Sunset Park. The left one, and I should say Sunset Park has about 113,000 people. So it's one discrete neighborhood in Brooklyn, but it's a large neighborhood and a very, very diverse neighborhood. And part of what we were hoping to learn about in this process was how these different groups, ethnic groups and linguistic groups were experiencing digital inequity. And so you see here on the left, the dark brown or orange areas are where people have less connectivity, lower rates of home broadband. The dark brown areas are about 60% have connectivity. So that means 40% of the people living in these census blocks do not have home internet service. And then on the right, the light green, which you can see kind of overlays nicely with the dark brown orange areas, those are households that do not have computing devices. So, the coalition includes, obviously a public library, a community development organization, 2 medical service providers, affordable housing developer, and the community board. We all provide digital equity services of one kind or another, but do so in different ways and have very different programs. And so this information, certainly speaking for the library, helps us think about where we need to do our outreach, physically in the neighborhood, where we need to be communicating to folks. And then we can change slides now. And also what languages we need to be doing outreach in and creating materials in. So you can see here, and this was a surprise, I think, to many of us, that the Hispanic Latinx community in Sunset Park, that's about 40% of the neighborhood overall, but nearly 50% of this community group lacks home broadband service, which is much, much higher than the other groups that we looked at. The Asian community, still 20% is not great, but it's not nearly as eye-popping as the 50%. So, we need more materials and programs and services in Spanish, potentially in parts of the neighborhood where Spanish speakers are, to help address this situation. And we can change slides again. In our community listening sessions and surveys, we had 175 survey respondents, but we also had 4 languages represented. We also found, some discrepancy in how different linguistic groups use the internet and what they use it for. So, telehealth figured a little more importantly for Spanish speakers and Bengali speakers than Chinese speakers. Job search was very important for Bengali speakers and Spanish speakers, and a little bit less so for the Chinese speakers. Education and school were highly ranked for all groups. So this, again, gives us, I think, some indication about where we can prioritize our efforts when it comes to language access issues and the like. So, to answer Vicky's questions, what have we accomplished? Well, I think we've accomplished a lot when it comes to understanding where the need is in our community. Again, I think a lot of this is very actionable, which makes us feel good about moving forward on some of our pilot projects going forward. But we're also proud of, you know, having met regularly as a group. Again, we're a new coalition, and we're trying to build capacity around that and kind of formalize our group as an entity with a little bit more professional meetings and agendas. So going forward, we want to keep up the momentum, meeting regularly with agendas and clear goals in mind, which I think our landscape analysis helps us identify. We want to continue to expand our membership, and we've identified about 178 nonprofits in the neighborhood, and a subset of which we think are digital equity related and definitely targets for our expansion. And then we want to coordinate more effectively, particularly when it comes to outreach and marketing of the very many different services and supports we already have in place. So just to give an example, we have an ACP affordable connectivity program hotline that we're setting up to help people sign up for the FCC subsidies to get home broadband. We have hotspot lending programs. Two organizations have hotspot lending programs. Two organizations help people access telehealth services. And we need to do more as a group to make sure that that we're communicating effectively to the people in the neighborhood who need these services and don't necessarily know about them. So another thing we found, which wasn't a surprise, is that the Sunset Park Public Library is the place that people tend to go to access the internet and access devices. But it's an entity, I think, that we can use much more effectively to market services in the neighborhood. So, you know, we're looking at how we can potentially build like a community calendar or little newsletter that we can distribute to folks who are coming into the library and other places, other service locations, just to be more effective communicators about the existing supports in Sunset Park. And I think that's all.
Great, thank you so much, David. Thanks for sharing that. I think 175 respondents on a survey with 4 different languages is awesome. And I love the mapping that you've done. And I think that all that's going to really play into how effectively you're going to really be able to grow your coalition and meet the digital equity needs in Sunset Park. It looks like you know, there's a lot that's going on there and a lot that's going to need to happen, you know, to try to help those folks gain access. So thanks for everything you shared. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Caroline, got you right before 2 o'clock. So
I appreciate it. Thank you. So I think over the past year, I'm going to move around a little bit on this slide, is that we, as a coalition, we started the year in goal setting and realignment of our mission and vision and what we would like to accomplish for the year. We also, part of that was looking at the existing working groups and revamping them so that they were, again, more in line with the goals and vision. And some of the aspects of the working groups were, you know, focused on digital equity, in terms of our focus on digital equity around looking at impact data, education, advocacy, also around engagement for the broader community. And so we also looked at the governance structure that we've been working on for quite some time and not having a lot of movement on. And so we formed a task force to solidify the leadership structure. The task force went through all of the documentations that we started with and updated the updated the organizational documents, created steering committee roles and responsibilities and terms of service and the time commitment that would be needed to serve. And so we launched a nomination process, and fingers crossed we should have our nomination or the voting process at the end of September in our next coalition meeting. One of the other ways that we accomplished this year was in working with our community partners to launch the Gigabit Center in the Bronx. So the first one in the Bronx, that would be a goal of the community accessing free Wi-Fi, internet, and devices and digital programming. And so some of the things that the coalition members are we did was we sent a survey around the coalition member to see who would like to start to provide some programming at the Gigabit Center, and we got about 12 respondents who were interested in providing programming. We also expanded our membership. We're a fairly large group, but in terms of 70, but not really in terms of active membership. And so we looked at that and talked about engagement and what that looks like. And through the launch of the Gigabit Center, through word of mouth, we obtained 10 new member organizations. We have a hospital group. That's the first time that we have a healthcare group involved in the coalition, and really wanting to look at telehealth as part of the coalition's goals. We also had a few tech organizations, nonprofit, small organizations join, as well as we have a representative from the New York City's mayor's office, the internet office, the CIO's office, as well as a member from the Bronx Borough President's office. So that's those two members have helped with lifting up the work of the coalition, as well as looking at some policy and advocacy. Next slide, Vicki. So in terms of what we've accomplished, some of the core accomplishments, the education working group, they surveyed approximately 100 schools across the Bronx and wanted to look at access to broadband devices and resources. So nearly 60% of the respondents had slow to moderate internet, and 70% had inadequate number of devices and resources in the classroom. And that's something that the education and advocacy group really wants to dig into those numbers a little bit more and see how we can create an actionable plan to address some of those issues. We had a donation of laptops and Chromebooks and desktops. And so we did a launch of text distribution to a high school and a senior center. So to graduating seniors, they got 50 Chromebooks and desktops to seniors. And we also had volunteers help set up the desktops for seniors as well. I talked about the launch of the Gigabit Center. So this was a great opportunity where Zenfi and City Bridge had approached the coalition around setting up not only the Gigabit Center, but the kiosks throughout the Bronx. So we had a couple of meetings with those groups, gave them feedback around some of the concerns around having kiosks and so forth in the neighborhood, and also provided them information on where we thought would be best to house the Gigabit Center. And so that was launched back in June. And so they're in the process of going through construction, and 2 or 3 of the members are going to be offering sort of pop-up digital literacy programs while they're going through some parts of the building going through construction. And the Gigabit Center should be fully launched sometime early next year. And as I said, we've been doing some informal coalition recruitment, and we had we're able to have 10 new participant organizations that have been attending the meetings, every meeting. So it's been a really good engagement with those new participants. Next slide, please. So in terms of what we see as our next goal for the next 6 to 12 months is to really utilize the space that has been created not only for programming, but also for a space for the coalition members to meet and convene. We are planning our first in-person convening sometime this fall, and they haven't convened since around the start of the pandemic. We're also looking to onboard and goal set for the steering committee, work with the foundation, it's the anchor organization, to pursue additional funding to really solidify the next 2 to 3 years in terms of goal setting, creating a sustainability plan, and ensure that the coalition is able to operate sustainably without as much support as needed now. So we did leverage the grant funding to around administrative support. And also we're looking to launch the coalition's first website. So in order to share information, a place for members to share what's going on in their communities, individual communities, as well as their organizations, and as a way to start to build their identity, a separate identity outside of the foundation. That's it.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for sharing all that. That's wonderful. Congratulations on the launch of the Gigabit Center. And then also, and then especially all the goal setting and the steering, the voting and stuff, and the planning around formalizing your steering committee and some of the processes in your coalition. I think that that's wonderful. So thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to work with everyone and to hear about what's going on in terms of coalitions throughout the country. And hopefully we'll have more opportunities to engage as a cohort. So I'm looking forward to that if that's a possibility.
Yeah.
But I have to jump off.
And you and I will
So I just wanted to
connect,
put
and
that
I'll
in there.
share with you the other. I'll share with you the other stuff that I'll be talking about
Okay,
after. Okay.
sounds great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
All right. The Western New York Digital Equity Coalition.
Thanks. Yeah, after that slide deck, I kind of feel like I need to go get some digital content creation training or something like that. This is fairly amateur hour, but that's okay, I guess. So yeah, this is mainly focused on what we've done since the last time we had one of these sort of confabs. So probably the most exciting thing that I have to report in this, and it sort of leads off, is that we actually were finally able to recruit 3 community members. And when I say that, I'm talking about people directly from the community and not sort of filtered through an organization lens, not representing an organization. And that was really one of the key goals that we had with this grant. And we have found that process of recruiting community members to be extraordinarily challenging. Even by the time I had submitted the report to Vicky, we'd only had 1. And then apparently we had sort of a, just they're coming out of the woodwork now. We've got 2 more. So that was tremendously exciting. And, we know that we're going to be working pretty hard to engage people. And, it's, as a reminder, it is a stipended position. We're looking at $250 per month, over a 6-month engagement, and longer if we have more money, which we've been able to secure. But yeah, so even with a fairly modest set of expectations and for the amount of work involved, a pretty generous stipend in my view, it's been hard to recruit. So getting 3 has been a real win for us. And the other piece of this is we're trying to make sure that we get people representing different geographies, different races and ethnicities, and really just a lot of different perspectives. And when you consider the number of sort of identities that we're sort of having to try to parse, I think we were aiming for 8 people, and that's still not as much representation as we ultimately need in terms of guiding the coalition's work. Another key goal that we had with this grant was to take whatever was already floating around in terms of landscape scans and asset maps and gaps analyses and try to get them together into a single document. And I'm chuckling because our consultant is maybe mildly snarky. It's an incomplete picture. That's because the picture is in fact incomplete when we consolidate all of these documents. And that's okay, because the main goal was to figure out what do we already know and what do we need to know, so that if we are going to do more assessment, we're not going to spend a lot of time assessing things that we already have a good handle on. So it's sort of a resource optimization approach. And that's actually, like, I had one set of revisions, and that's off with a designer. So that will be available probably in the next couple of weeks. And then we're pretty excited because we actually managed to meet each other in person for the first time in 2 years, just about. Like, our first meeting was on Zoom on September 30th, 2020. And it took us until August 17th, 2022 to actually see each other in person. So that was pretty wild. So that's what you see on the right. Like, one of the main activities there was the beginnings of a systems mapping process. And that's one of, roughly 10 flip chart pages. And, we had about 25 people show up for that. And it was just a great deal. And we, just like I think it was Nikki or possibly Nancy before said, yeah, we had sandwiches. It was like legit. So that was pretty great. So yeah, go ahead, Vicki, you can go to the next slide.
I love it.
Yeah, and I don't know. I suspect this, like, I need to see a therapist about this, but I'm not really good at celebrating small wins or slowing down and stopping to think about what's gone really well and like what work we've done to be super proud of. But I think the thing that has been striking to me and that I've really appreciated is that the coalition it's coalitioning. We're doing the coalition thing. Everybody is stepping up and pitching in as they're able to. So it's not so much just a bunch of folks who hang out together because an hour of this is better than an hour or something in their day jobs. So we meet once a month, and actually more than that for committees. We have a full member meeting every month, and then we have 5 committees actually that meet monthly in between. What's been impressive, though, is every time we've had a project or a need or anything like that, people have stepped up. We've talked about we've heard and seen some great logos, and our logo is a product of some of the coalition members sending us, basically letting us use their graphic design department, let us use this as a senior portfolio project, and that's how we got our logo. In terms of expertise, we have some folks who are real advocacy experts. That is their day job, and they're lending that expertise to the coalition because mostly as soon as there's like a legislative meeting, I freak out. Like, I have no idea what to do. So that's not awesome. But again, they have their experience working with different people and again, their day jobs that they bring to bear. And sometimes it's just as simple as, if we need a place to meet, they can provide us with a place to meet on the cheap or free, even better. Air conditioning doesn't necessarily work, but it's still pretty cool. So yeah, so that's kind of a big thing for me. It sort of feels like it's moving from sort of just this bunch of isolated entities that show up to a meeting to an actual coalition as a single entity. So that's very exciting to me. And then we can talk about what's next. All right, so for all of that great stuff I was just saying, the biggest hindrance, I would say, the biggest obstacle to the coalition's long-term success is that I have inadvertently placed myself as too much of a hub. Too much information has to flow through me, too much work coordination has to come through me. So basically, I think I said this before, optimistically, I win the lottery, pessimistically, I get hit by a bus, then a lot of stuff is just going to stop. And that's not great. So one of the main focus, one of my main concerns for this next year. One of the things I'm really focusing on is trying to decentralize a lot of that stuff, decentralize communications, decentralize project ownership, a lot of that type of stuff, so that if I get lucky or extremely unlucky, the work continues without me. We are looking at having a couple or 3 more in-person convenings. That's all budget dependent. And I should mention that we are in an excellent position that way, because we were born out of a philanthropic response to COVID. So we are actually very closely tied in with the local foundation landscape. And again, full disclosure, I'm part of that. We have we are pretty well resourced going into this next year. So we're going to, as part of that, continue some systems mapping work, and also start to figure out how that turns into the opportunities for actual projects that can make a difference. Because one of the things that a coalition makes them powerful is that everybody approaches the same issue from different perspectives. So we all see different pieces of the system. So where we start to see system components and they start rubbing up against each other, those are places we can make a difference. So once we have that mapping a little more advanced, we're going to have some more opportunities to do some stuff with that. We've already got even after that first round, which was done in a couple of hours, we have some actionable projects that are starting to take shape. One of the other pieces, and this is exciting to me, there is a framework that I don't remember if I've talked about on any of these calls, but it's called strategic case making. And essentially it is, you could think about it as a sort of communication strategy, an advocacy strategy, an advocacy framework that puts at the center systems change and incorporates a healthy dose of behavioral science. So it's really all about how do we motivate people to see themselves as stakeholders on the issue that matters to us, and see themselves as part of the solution, or the solutions, I should say, to this sort of wicked, vexing, adaptive problem. And I am currently talking with the strategic case-making people about a training, and certainly that would involve some of the Western New York folks, but in these conversations with them, I'm also seeing if there might be an opportunity to include some of the other folks from around New York State, because there's absolutely no good reason, there are plenty of bad reasons, but no good reasons to try to sort of keep that sort of framework and knowledge to ourselves out here in Western New York. If we can share that, that's better. And also we can start to align messages and, again, advance that advocacy agenda, which leads me right to the next point. As several folks have mentioned, there's this emerging New York State Digital Equity Network. We have a logo. I think some folks at the STEM Alliance had put that together, or I could have that name wrong. But anyway, so they put that together. We, as I think Lynn had mentioned, we'll be hopefully working with the Connect All office to do some statewide digital equity planning. And there's some good opportunities there to see where we have common agenda items that we can promote to the state and beyond, potentially, to try to make some change that way. And then this last piece, again, is a function of the fact that we're sort of almost an arm, a branch of the COVID-19 response, the philanthropic COVID-19 response. So we have a modest amount of money available to do some systems change regranting. In our first round of funding from the COVID-19 response fund in Western New York, we were able to fund about $100,000 in just sort of digital equity projects. So we funded a handful of those. And then, when I submitted a request to them again, there's like, well, those are great projects, but we're not really seeing the systems change flavor, because they're getting people broadband, giving people equipment, some digital literacy training. And I take their point, but I also the point I made back to them, and I'm sure they like that, is yes, but it keeps everyone engaged, because if we don't have people staying at the table, there's no change going to happen. But with this, I was able to get some money, basically saying that from our systems mapping work, we're going to see those places where components rub together, where there might be opportunities to push a little bit for that systems change, and then we can make some grants out to organizations and projects that'll be doing that kind of work. So yeah, I think we all have plenty on our plates. That's it for
Great.
us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. There's a lot going on. I love this idea of the strategic case making training. And that'd be great if you could share that out with everybody in the group, if you're able to do that. I think that that'll be really impactful for folks, you know, especially in this group. And then I really appreciate the need for the coalition resilience. I think that that's something that everybody is probably looking towards. I've had a couple people in my meetings talk about, you know, who else can do this work besides me, you know, in my group. So, all right. And I'm really glad that Mario was able to join us. And so I'm going to go back to his slide and then, let's see here, right there. Yep. Right there. Yeah. No. Yeah. Here.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
Great. No, thank you for accommodating the whole timing issue. It just so happened to fall on our bi-monthly all staff, like organization-wide meeting. So really appreciate that.
No problem.
But yeah, so time certainly flew by.
It does.
6 months, really hard to believe.
Yeah, we have about it's 11:13 now. I just have a few wrap-up things at the end. So between you and I saw that Scott Kushner came in, and so he can share a little bit about what's going on with Central New York. So if you could take maybe 5 minutes, that would be.
Yeah, we'll keep it tight.
Thank you.
Sure thing. So just a refresher, we're the Age-Friendly Neighborhoods Digital Inclusion Coalition. So we're focusing on one of the NDIA priority areas of older adults, trying to make sure that older adults have the infrastructural access, but also the technology skills and devices necessary to stay connected. So you can hop over to the second slide. So again, our goals were strengthening our existing relationships with diverse community stakeholders, broadening our convening network to include new and diverse community stakeholders, and coordinating advocacy efforts at the community board and city council levels to advocate for local digital inclusion needs. So over the course of the grant, we were just going to hop over to our accomplishments. We had 3 meetings in May, July, and August. By the end, we were able to have 17 separate member organizations that were attendees that were getting involved. Our first meeting, we started with, I believe it was 4 organizations. So we were able to really tap into our networks there. I'd say our most significant accomplishment during this grant period was responding to the interests of our member organizations about the need for equity for older adults in telemedicine. So we were able to organize it was a free, widely available. I'm actually just going to pop the link to the YouTube video in the chat here, in case later on, if you want to see how the event went. But the focus there was telemedicine for older adults. We brought together 4 experts. We had William Hamer from Harlem Advocates for Seniors. He was representing kind of the older adult perspective, because he has set up a number of mobile technology labs that go through Harlem to connect older adults to different resources through technology. We had Dr. Matthew Weissman, who's a site chair at Beth Israel, at Mount Sinai Beth Israel. We had Dr. Janine Knudsen, who has done a number of studies. She'd worked closely with Dr. Chokshi on bringing equity, an equity lens to digital endeavors, digital telemedicine, and also Darcy Graves from the CMS Office of Minority Health to again provide a kind of a regulatory perspective. So we kind of covered all of our bases there and had I'm a little biased. I thought it was a great discussion on everything from the older adults' needs when it comes to digital equity, but also the providers, how are medical schools responding to this new need for doctors to have their chops, so to speak, for telemedicine kind of honed and really developed, because a lot of people, myself included, don't necessarily like the I guess the sterility of telemedicine exchanges with doctors. A lot of people still like the idea of going in, having a face-to-face communication, but finding ways to ensure that they have the necessary training to make it a successful exchange between provider and patient. So I'd encourage you to check out the recording that we had there. It was over 100 registrants. We're up to 120 some views on YouTube. So that was our big event throughout this grant period. And some of our future plans, we're trying to figure out how to do more of a defined leadership structure. So we've been asking for kind of volunteers that would be interested in taking a more significant role in kind of directing the Digital Inclusion Coalition. We have a couple of people that are interested in that, but we're still really trying to settle into that. And we want to continue building relationships with city council and community board districts. You'll see on the next page where we have some of our attendees. You'll see at the, I believe it's the bottom left. Yeah, so we've had representatives from the Queensborough President's Office. So we're starting to get some, make some inroads there in terms of letting elected officials know who we are, kind of what we're up to. So again, it's still kind of building a lot of these relationships, and I guess that's a wrap. I'll pass it over to, I guess it was Scott is up next.
Yeah, thank you, Mario. Thanks for sharing all that. That's wonderful. I was just thinking that, that yes, I do have some document that I can share with you regarding organizational structure. And building a charter and doing all that. And so that should be helpful for you. And
absolutely.
And congratulations on your event. That's wonderful. And
thanks.
all that you've been able to accomplish. Thank you. Hi, Scott.
Hello. I'm sorry. I for some reason on my calendar, I had the invite was for 2 o'clock Eastern time. So when I came in and saw that it's been going for an hour, I was like, okay, well, I kind of screwed that up. I don't know what happened there. I don't have a lot to add right at the moment. I think there's certain things, I heard Don's presentation, and I think there were some similarities there in terms of coalition building. We've been trying to reach out to, since the grants were based on the economic regions, we've been trying to reach out to like our counterparts or find out what other people are doing in the other counties. Like we've been focused mainly on the Onondaga County and the Syracuse. So I think we've been pretty successful at doing that. One of the outstanding issues, and it's something that Don reminded me of, was the whole thing of it being centralized. Annabeth Hayes and I started this thing, and we still co-chair it. But I think this happens in any kind of organization. Excuse me, where yet trying to convince people. Yeah, I mean the coalition's great. We have a lot of good members and a diverse population. And the diverse population that the different members are dealing with or working with. So in that sense, the coalition is strong, but in terms of the workings and the progress of the coalition itself, it's very centralized on Annabeth and myself. So, another initiative that I've been involved with previously, one of the leaders of that used to say, call everybody co-creators. And I love that terminology because, and I'd say every time we meet, we have a general meeting every 2 months. And every time we meet, I say, you know, I kind of bring that idea up, like, okay, this isn't us coming to you to tell you what we're going to do. It's us coming to you and saying, okay, what are we going to do? That's the simplest way of putting it. But so, you know, we're moving forward and we're trying to put together a summit, which that's been changing as we go along to the size of it and everything. So we haven't really settled in on that, but that's one of our goals and one of the sort of crown achievements of the coordinator that we were able to hire from the grant. And we're part of that New York State coalition, network of coalitions, which I'm really, really enthusiastic about. I think it's a great thing. That's it.
Great. Thank you so much, Scott, for sharing about Central New York. I appreciate you and what's happening there. You know, this has been a great session. I'm just so glad that you all are all tied into the New York Digital Equity Network. I think that that's going to be really valuable as you move forward. And if you're not, then let me know and I will connect you, or you can feel free to reach out to any of your other colleagues here on this call to do that. And I just think that it's something that's really gonna help out in terms of what's happening with the IIJA, with the Digital Equity Act funding and such. And there's state plans for what's going to be, what digital equity looks like in New York. And so I wanted to just share a couple of things. I have, I'm going to share this slide deck out with you. And so I know we're getting short on time. I wanted to have the time for, you know, if people had questions or anything, but you all have each other's contact information. So if there's anything that intrigues you about what's been shared, please reach out to each other. I will be sharing this recording as well. And so for those of you that weren't able to see the first part of it, you'll be able to see that. And then also the slide deck. And so that's why there are links on this last slide here, because there is an offboarding checklist. And so I'd like it if you would be able to complete that by October 7th. If you haven't scheduled a one-on-one with me yet, please do so using the Calendly link there. I will be out of town for the next couple of weeks, but you know, we can totally find time to meet and connect so that I can make sure that you've had all the resources that you need in order to have been successful in your grant. But all your grants have been just so wonderful. I'm just so proud of all of you. And then something I'd like to share as a benefit. You know, I encouraged everybody to join NDIA as an affiliate, and we made a decision internally as an organization that all of the grantees for the New York Digital Inclusion Fund will now be upgraded to an affiliate plus membership. And so that is a little bit different than, there are several benefits to being an affiliate plus, and it's no cost to you. It is paid subscribership. And so you'll be first to get invitations to NDIA community working groups. We also have a monthly affiliate plus calls, which include the executive director, the NDIA executive director, as well as the our team, and then the affiliate plus membership. You can have 2 spots for that. So to be able to attend that for each organization. And then you get discount for NDIA events, including the Net Inclusion Conference, which is coming up in San Antonio in February, end of February, early March. And so beginning of March, and then everything else. So and then we also want to make sure that we can feature the work that you're doing or you've done. And so that's another benefit of being an affiliate plus member for NDIA, and that will be for 1 year. And so I just wanted to let you know that that's something we decided that we wanted to do for all grantees. And that just recently came up. And so that's why you haven't had it for this full year. So you'll have it for into 2022 as well, 2023 as well. So does anybody have any questions for me? Oh, I just want to give everybody a round of applause and make sure that you give yourselves all pats on the back and kisses, for all the work that you've done. And I really hope that someday I'll be able to make it out to your areas or see you or meet you all in person. I haven't even met Nuha in person. And so, it's like, I really, really, really hope that we can do that at some point, in the near future. But make sure you continue connecting through our digital, our coalition working group, if you're not part of that. And so I invite you to do that. And you can feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or you're interested in doing that. So
I got a quick question.
yes, Scott.
On that last slide or whatever it is you have up there, is that supposed to be a link?
Yes, I'll be sharing the slide deck with you, so you'll be able to link it, but I'll also share with you the links. But that's why there are links in here is
Okay, because
you can't link them now, but you can't link to them now, but you will.
okay, all right. I just want to make sure I didn't miss. All right, thank you.
Yeah. So let me just stop the share. I'm gonna stop recording.